So it's the weekend and it's time to update my high yield stock tracker sheet with the distributions that we have earned this week. And since I did not enter them last week, I'll be entering those in as well. Hello my friends, this is Legend. So today we're going to go over my high yield stock tracker sheet. We're going to enter in those distributions, and I have 2 weeks worth to enter in because last week was a holiday and I did not get to enter those into my spreadsheet. So I'll do that this week, get it updated, and find out where I currently sit with each of those high yield ETFs. But before we get into that, if you don't mind, hit that like button as it does help the channel out. Now before we actually enter those in, I just wanted to do a little recap as the market did move up at the end of last week. SPY, you can see, did do a nice little pop. We are sitting above what I called a pretty strong resistance or support line, depending on which side of that line you're on. As you can see over here, that was a pretty strong support line. It was tapping this line several times. You can just see right along here where it was actually coming down, testing it, and popping back off. But until we actually broke it here, it became a little bit of a resistance line. As you can see, it did try to come back up and then fell back down. But toward the end of last week, we did pop up above this line, and now we're actually hopefully going to use this same line as a support line once again. My covered call that I have on SPY is now sitting right here on this line of this 675. That is currently out to April the 24th. And I have made some pretty nice premium doing so. And since I own those shares right here at this dotted white line at 668, if those shares are called away, I make that difference in price appreciation. So that would be a nice $700 extra going into my account if those shares are taken away at 675. So hopefully this week we can stay above this 675, because I don't mind at all those shares being taken, because unless they're taken away, I don't get that price appreciation, right? I want that extra powder coming into my account where I can use it to either buy more shares of something or whatever I wanted to use it for. But I need that money coming into the account. I do have some shares that I do hold, and it's a hold forever type thing. And that's good, right? Because as it's moving up, the account's going up. But I need fresh money coming in, money that I can use to purchase more shares. And to do that, I use options. And those options help bring in that extra money. And then, of course, when those options I have are called away and it's above my purchase price, that is additional money coming into my account. And that is how you can help to grow your account, and it's extra money that's actually usable, right? Because if you just buy and hold, that's great. The account is moving up, but you don't necessarily have extra money in your cash portion of the account to purchase more shares. You have to use your own money from your job or however you're bringing in your money to actually buy new shares. Versus using options gives me the ability to make that additional money to buy more shares to hopefully get to a point where you can do 2 contracts or maybe 3 contracts, right? So now you're not only earning that premium on 1 contract, but if you're able to make 2 or 3 contracts, you're double or tripling that premium coming in. So that's just something to think about, right? But let's go ahead and let's get over to that high yield stock tracker sheet and let's get that updated, enter in those distributions, and find out where I'm currently sitting. All right, so here we are on my high yield stock tracker sheet. And if you would like to get a copy of this sheet, it is available to my Discord members. And that link is in the pinned comments and the description below, where you can join my Discord, get a copy of this high yield stock tracker sheet so that you can track your own positions of those high yields so that you can find out if you're currently green in that play, which means that you are positive in that play, or are you red in that play, meaning that you're currently down in that position. As you can see, I have some red and some green. Because of that market coming down and Bitcoin moving down, it has caused a few of these to drop down a little bit. But you can see that overall, I am still up in the position, because if I were to sell out of every single one of these high yield ETFs, I would gain and make $11,616. And that's this number right here at the top. That is if I were to sell out of all of the positions I have of all of these high yield ETFs, I would gain $11,000 above what I actually spent to get into those positions. So currently I am still up in these, but like I said, the ones that I am down on are CONY, ULTY, SMCY. If we slide right over, you can see I am down a little bit on WDTE as well. But as we slide all the way over, the rest are green. The rest I am up on. And therefore, overall, when you add it all up and subtract off the losses, I am currently up in this portion of my portfolio. So that's why I kind of like this sheet, because it does help you to understand where you currently sit. Are you up in the position? Are you down in the position? Because if you're looking at your broker app, it's possible it'll show that you are down on every single one of them, but it's not taking into account your distributions that you are earning for each one of these. And my spreadsheet here does. So it helps you to fully understand where you are currently at. Now on this sheet, we're currently looking at the summary page. And the summary page really just gives you the nice little overview of exactly where you are for each of those positions. And you just slide right over. And I have a total of 15 positions. And you can have all the way up to a total of 30 positions and track each one separately. Now each one has its own individual tracker. And to get to that individual sheet, you can simply just hover right over the ticker, whichever one you want to go to. And if we want to go to CONY, because we're going to start entering in those distributions, so we'll go straight to that first one. You hover over it, you get the pop-up, you click the pop-up, and it takes you straight to that individual sheet. And this individual sheet is the one where you actually enter in any purchases or sales that you have made, the amount of the distributions of each one, and it goes through and it calculates it all for you, and it does carry it over to that summary page so that you have one sheet that you only have to look at, and you don't have to go through each sheet just to see where you're currently at for each of your positions. The summary page just kind of gives you a nice little overview of all of your positions you are tracking. So we are currently looking at CONY. And for CONY, like I said, I have 2 weeks to enter in. And if we scroll right on down, you can see I've already entered in those distribution amounts. All I have to do is enter in the actual number of shares, and that is going to help to recalculate what that real price per share is. And we'll see how much we are up or down in each of these positions. So I'm going to go through these probably pretty quickly since I do have 2 weeks worth to actually enter in. So let's just go ahead and jump right on into it. So for CONY, the current real price per share is $39.70. And after we enter in these 2 separate weeks of distributions, we're going to get that new adjusted real price per share here. And with the current price of CONY being $25.07, we are currently down. And these 2 current distributions are not going to get it below that current price, but it will lower that real price per share to help offset a little bit of those losses on CONY. So the number of shares I do have for each one of these, and since I have not purchased any shares since January, I still have that total of 175 shares. For each one of these, I'll be entering in the 175. And you can see as I enter this in, you'll watch this real price per share change for each of the distributions. So enter in the 175, so that 39.70 drops to 39.33, but we have one more to enter in at 175, so that 39.33 now becomes 38.95. So as you can see, each time that I'm entering in those distributions and gaining that distribution amount, it is helping to lower my real price per share. Now, if CONY decides to move back up and it gets back up above, say, 38.95 or something like that, then this one's going to turn green. But until then, I'm going to continue to lower this. And if CONY moves up and I'm moving my real price per share down, I'm going to get across that same line a little quicker, right? Because if the price is moving up and my real price per share is moving down, that's less distance it has to travel before I can cross over that current price and flip this one from red to green. So that's just kind of the idea of how I am tracking and how I am playing these high yield ETFs. So moving to the next one, we have PLTY. Now PLTY is actually paid off. As you can see up here at the top, paid off. That means that the distribution amount that I have earned here, being $23.75, is greater than the amount that I have actually spent or invested. The invested amount was $22.44, and I have made in distributions $23.75. So therefore, since my distributions are greater than the amount invested, this one is paid off. But I still get to enter in my distributions that I've earned, and all of that I'm earning, since this is paid off, is 100% free and clear, not including any taxes. So scroll right on down here. You can see that the two we did receive is 44 cents and 45 cents. I have 37 shares and I have not purchased any in the range of these 2 weeks. So we'll enter 37 shares here. So this real price per share of minus 354 will become minus 399. And the next one for 37 shares will change it to minus 445. That's how far above my total investment that I am. So as you can see, my total distributions I've earned is $24.09, and the amount that I've invested is $22.44. So I am a good bit away from that invested amount. So therefore, any money I'm making is free and clear. And of course, that's my goal for each of these high yield ETFs. Some of them's going to take a while to get there, and others will get there a little quicker. But moving on, we have NVDY. And we'll scroll right on down, and you can see we've got two distributions for NVDY, both of them being 11 cents, and I have 71 shares for each. So my real price per share of $10.94 drops down to $10.83 on the first week, and for this week it drops down to $10.72. Now the current price being $13.45 means that if I were to sell all these shares at that current price, I'm going to make $194 on this current position. So this one I am green on. For ULTY, ULTY is currently red, right? Because my real price per share is $33.46, but the current price is $31.19. So if ULTY can get above my real price per share, then this one will flip green, right? But rather than me just sitting and waiting for the current price to get up to my real price per share, I can also help that to happen by gathering those distributions to help lower this real price per share, so that if the price of ULTY does increase and my real price per share decreases, I can get across that line just that much quicker. So let's scroll right on down. We earned 37 cents the week before, and this week we earned 41 cents. I have 56 shares, so I'll enter that in for each one. So that $33.46 becomes $33.09, and for the distribution of this week, that 56 shares will help to reduce that real price per share of $33.09 down to $32.67. So you can see, because I am gathering in those distributions, I am bringing that real price per share down, and that put me that much closer to ULTY. So now if ULTY all of a sudden just jumps to 32.75, which isn't that far away now, right? I am only now minus 3% down. So if I were to sell all my shares of ULTY at the current price, I'm only going to lose $82 now. So you can see that I am helping to lower my real price per share so that ULTY's current price or stock price does not have to do all the work. I'm helping it out by lowering my average of that real price per share down so that ULTY does not have to move up so high. So I hope that's starting to make some sense. And moving forward, we have MSTY, and MSTY is also paid off. And for MSTY, I have a real price per share of minus $9.54. Very, very nice. And at that current time, before entering in these distributions, if I were to sell all my shares, I would make $2,900. But let's go ahead and enter in those distributions and let's find out how much that's going to change this number. From $2,900, what will that new amount be? So let's just find out. So we'll scroll right on down, and we earned 31 cents the week before, and this week we earned 30 cents. Both of them, I have 95 shares. So that real price per share of minus $9.54 will change to minus $9.86. And for this week, it'll also drop it down from $9.86 to minus $10.16. So that $29.29 gains that I have is now showing that's going to be $29.87. So that just helps to increase those gains little by little. So if I were to sell all my shares at the current price of $21.29, then I will make $2,987 on this position. For SMCY, I have a real price per share of $6.93, and that current price being $5.67. I'm going to help to lower my real price per share by gathering in those distributions. So let's go ahead and enter those in, and I have a total of 325 shares. So that 693 now becomes 685. And for the distribution of this week, that 685 will lower to 676. So now, if I were to sell all my shares of SMCY at the current position, I'm only going to lose $354. Now, I'm not selling as I'm still lowering my real price per share and hoping that SMCY can move back up to close to $7 so that then I am green on the position. And even when I'm green, I'm still going to be gathering my distributions to help lower this real price per share so that if SMCY did drop again and my real price per share gets down to say $5 and then SMCY drops back down to $5.50, I'm still green, right? Because I'm lowering my real price per share, not just sitting right where it's currently at and hoping that these move up. Because we know that these high yield ETFs do move down at times. Our best bet on these are that they move sideways to slightly up. That is a good position. And if we can continue to lower that real price per share, we are just increasing the gap between that real price per share and the current price, which then gives us some downward protection on that price. So if it does move down, it does not change our account from green to red so easily. And moving on to AMDY. Now AMDY was getting really close to flipping to red there for a while, but it has popped back up and it's back up to about $35.11. And my real price per share of $27.39 means that currently if I were to sell, I would make about $1,266. But I have not entered my distributions, so let's enter those as that's going to help to increase that gains. So we'll scroll right on down, and I have a total of 164 shares. We earned 32 cents the week before and 49 cents this week. So let's enter in 164, and let's see what that real price per share moves down to, as it's currently at $27.39, and now it becomes $27.06. And let's enter in the 164 shares for this week, and that $27.06 becomes $26.56. Look at this. It just keeps dropping down, and I haven't purchased any more shares, right? I'm using the distributions to help lower my real price per share, which only helps to increase my gains. And now my gains is if I were to sell all my shares at the current price of $35.11, I will make $1,401. So you can see it's increasing, and I did not even have to buy or do anything. I'm earning those distributions. It's helping to lower my real price per share, which is, of course, increasing that gap between that real price per share and my current price, which then increases those gains. And that is what this spreadsheet can help you to do. So if you don't have a way of tracking that, please come on over, join the Discord. That link is down in the descriptions below and in the pinned comments. Moving on to YMAX. On YMAX, we have that real price per share of $6.78, and you can see the current price is $7.71. Now, could you imagine if I was not playing this high yield ETF the way that I'm playing it? I could very well be setting close to this purchase price of $18.66, right? If we were not earning those distributions. That would not be a good thing. So even though my purchase price being $18.66, I've earned a total of $9,000 in distributions, which helps to offset that average price, and that's where I'm calculating this real price per share. So my real price per share of $6.78 is below the $7.71 current price, so that's why this one is currently green, but I also have not entered in those distributions, so let's slide right on down and do that. And here we are. We earned 8 cents the week before and 9 cents this week. I have 758 shares, so that 678 drops to 670. And let's enter in that 758 shares for this week. And that's going to lower that 670 down to 660. Look at that. So now if I were to sell all my shares of YMAX at the current price of $7.71, I'm going to make $837. So even though YMAX may be moving down, I'm also moving my real price per share down to try to stay below that current price. Now, if that current price trades sideways, I'm still lowering my real price per share. So therefore, I am increasing that gap to help provide that downside protection. Moving on to WDTE. Now, WDTE, I am red on, right? Because my real price per share is $42.69 and the current price is $27.63. So I am down on this one. I am down about 30%. But let's enter in those distributions and let's see how much it changes this 30% or minus $1,746 down to. So we'll slide right on down. I have a total of 116 shares. We earned 38 cents the week before and 40 cents this week. So 116 shares will lower that real price per share from $42.69 down to $42.31. And this week's distribution is going to lower it even further down to $41.90. Now you can see I am down, but I'm only down 28% instead of 30%. So I am actually able to help myself out by capturing those distributions. And now I'm only standing to lose about $1,600. Now, granted, I don't want to lose it, so I'm not selling at the moment, but I also can see WDTE moving back up as the underlying being Robinhood if Bitcoin can get back on that horse and start moving back up. But only time will tell. Moving on to QDTE, that current real price per share is $21.38. Before entering these distributions, that's a 17% gain and a $1,115 unrealized gains if I were to sell at that current price. So let's slide right on down and let's enter in those distributions as we did earn 15 cents the week before and 10 cents this week. So I have a total of 155 shares. That real price per share of $21.38 now becomes $21.22, and 155 shares for this week's distribution will lower that real price per share of $21.22 down to $21.12. So now I'm looking to make about $1,156 if I were to sell all my shares at the current price of $28.58. So you can see I'm lowering that real price per share, even if that current price is dropping or moving up or trading sideways. Either way, I am lowering my real price per share. And I do that because I know how these high yield ETFs work. They do have a tendency to want to move down, especially when the market is going against it. Next, I have IWMY, current price of $18.77 and my real price per share of $14.76. But that is before I enter in the distributions. So that's a almost 9.5% gain, and that's a unrealized gain if I were to sell those shares of $2,211. But let's enter in those distributions and find out what that changes it to. And I have a total of 551 shares for the 10 cents of the week before and 10 cents for this week. So that's going to lower it from $14.76 down to $14.65. And the distribution for this week will lower that $14.65 down to $14.55. So now that has upped my gains to $2,325. So very, very nice. QQQY, current real price per share before entering my distributions is $19.09. We are under that current price of $21.49. Therefore, this one is green and is positive with a gains of $1,322. But let's enter those distributions in as we did earn 11 cents the week before and 12 cents this week. And I have 551 shares. So that 1909 will drop to 1897. And with the next distribution, I have 551, and it's going to drop that 1897 down to 1885. And that also increased those gains to $1,453 because I have lowered my real price per share here, therefore increasing the gap between the current price and my real price per share. Next, we have WDTE. Before entering those distributions, I have a real price per share of $24.93. That is indeed under that current price of $29.49. Therefore, that means I am positive in the play, and I'm currently looking at a gain of $2,464. And that is before entering the distributions. So let's enter those in now. And you can see we earned 16 cents the week before and 16 cents this week as well. I have 540 shares, so let's just see what it changes that real price per share and how much more that gains of $24.64 increases to. So 540 shares is going to drop that real price per share down from $24.93 to $24.76. And this week's distribution is going to drop it even further to $24.60. So that's my new real price per share. And you can see my gains have now went up to $2,643. Again, you need to make sure you have a way of tracking this because this is going to help you to understand where you currently and really sit in each of your positions. For JEPQ, this one is a monthly payer. If we scroll down, we did receive a distribution for this month. On 4/1, we earned 55 cents. My real price per share of $9.63 is going to lower when I enter in those 55 shares for that 55 cents, and therefore my real price per share of $9.68 becomes $9.13. And therefore, if I were to sell all my shares, and that's all 55 shares at the current price of $57.62, I will make $2,667 on JEPQ alone. And last but not least, I have DIVO. Now, DIVO is a monthly pair as well, and it pays toward the end of the month. So I do not have a distribution to enter in for DIVO, but I did purchase a few shares for DIVO, and I purchased those shares on 3/30. That buy price that I did buy them at, I had an order set and it went through and it purchased them at 44.08. I purchased 5 shares at that price, so that's not only going to help lower this purchase share price, But more importantly, it's going to lower my real price per share here. So that $44.75 is going to lower because the purchase that I just made is under $44.75. I purchased these new shares at $44.08. So as long as I purchase under that real price per share, it will lower that real price per share. If I purchase these at $45, it's actually going to raise that real price per share. I do not want to raise the real price per share overall, even though there are times when I may do that. But the way the market has been lately, a lot of times it does give you those opportunities to buy below your real price per share. And you can see it did give me that opportunity, and I took it and I bought 5 shares. So that real price per share of $44.75 will now become $44.55, and therefore it is still below the current price of $45.53. Therefore, if I were to sell my shares, I'm going to make about 16 bucks. Not a whole lot, but you can see even on a small amount, you can still work it the same way. So that is pretty much all the ones that I have of these high yield ETFs. And to get back to my summary page, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is go right here, this little button, and you hover over it, and it'll take you right back to the summary page. And right here is the summary page. It is all updated. And as you can see, also that total amount earned was updated as well. It is now showing that if I were to sell out of every single one of these high yield ETFs, where it was 11,000 and some odd dollars, it is now $12,817. And that is if I were to sell out of every single position at that current price that it was at. And that's this market price right here. If I were to sell each one at that market price, that is how much I would make in total after selling out of every single one of the high yield ETFs. So that's a pretty nice thing to see. You can see where you currently sit. You can see how much you actually have invested and your total distributions you have earned. Now on this side right here, this is where I actually used when I was deciding when to buy DIVO, because I can do a little drop down right here. I can pick from whichever one I want to actually look at. And at that time, I selected DIVO, and I had put a buy price of something above $44. And when it opened, it was actually below my buy price. And that's where it ends up buying it at that $44.08. And that's the reason it's kind of an odd number of that purchase on DIVO. And that's just because I had a buy price of say $44.15 or something. And when it opened, since the current price was under my limit price of $44.15 again, it actually went to market and it purchased it at that market price, which was around that $44.08. And that's why that's a bit of an odd buy price if you were looking at that and wondering why I selected $44.08. But you can enter in this amount, how many shares, and it will calculate what that new real price per share would be. If you purchased shares at that buy price and the number of shares, it'll tell you how much it would actually cost you to make that purchase, but it will also take the current real price per share and recalculate it and tell you what that would possibly be if you did make that purchase. So that helps you to see if it's worth making that purchase or not. It's just another little helping tool that you can use when you're deciding whether or not you want to make that purchase, and will it bring down that real price per share enough that it makes sense to make that purchase. There's also a little tab in that same high yield stock tracker sheet where it does track your charts here for you. And this is the monthly, right? This is just the distributions I make per month. Now, of course, as you can see, back in 2024, we were making some very nice distributions. It has since changed, and those distributions aren't as high as they used to be. But I'm still tracking them, right? I'm still showing how much I'm making on my distributions. And this is the monthly, and of course, this is the yearly. So again, it's just another tool for you to actually be able to see where you currently sit when you're entering in all of your high yield ETFs, to not only track each one, but also to see where you're currently setting and how much you're making on those positions. But back to the summary page, you can see now I am still currently down on CONY, ULTY, SMCY, and WDTE. And the rest of them I am still green on. But as we had saw, ULTY, we're actually getting really close, hopefully, to it flipping to a green. We really just need ULTY to trade sideways or to move up, still pay out those nice distributions so that eventually we can get below that current price and flip this one to green. And eventually, I would love to see all of these to have this phrase right here on each one of them, paid off, right? I have PLTY and MSTY paid off. And then, of course, these numbers where it doesn't have the word paid off, those numbers is how many more distributions estimated I would need before getting to that paid off status. It also helps you to see how far away you are. Now, these numbers do change because the distributions that are paid out change. And it is all on the average of those last 4 distributions. So this number here is not necessarily 100% guaranteed that I'll get CONY paid off in 83 distributions. Now, isn't that kind of funny? Even though I'm down on CONY, it's showing that I still only need about 83 more distributions before I can get it paid off. And that's using the current distribution amounts that we're getting paid. But as those do change, so will that estimated time to get to paid off status. If it increases, this will decrease. If it decreases in distribution, then that time will increase. So it is in relation to that distribution amount that you are earning to help calculate that estimated time period. So I know a lot of people have really gave up on a lot of these, and it is not moving like it used to, that's for sure. There for a while, we were making a lot of distributions in these high yield ETFs. It has since cooled down, but I still have the same plan. And my plan is to get them paid off so that I do not have any of my personal money invested. It's all been paid back through YMAX and these other high yield ETF funds in the way of distributions, so that all the distributions from that point out was just free and clear. And that's money coming into my account that I can use to buy more shares of whatever I wanted to buy. Because that, to me, is what you have to have. You have to find a way of having something that is funding money back into the account, and that's got to be usable money. Because just owning a stock as it's moving up, the only way that you can actually get that money is if you were to sell the shares. And once you sell the shares, it no longer makes you any money. Versus something like this, I hold the shares, it continues to pay me distributions, and at some point I'll get it paid off, and I'm still earning distributions, which is then free money coming into my account to help me to use to buy more shares of whatever I wanted to buy, whether it's more high yield ETFs or whether it's VOO, Microsoft, Apple, whatever I wanted to purchase. It is my choice, just like it would be your choice. And of course, you do have to make your own decisions. You are the CEO of your portfolio, and you are in control. So I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and smash the like button, as it would be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, Legend out.